And welcome to a special edition of the Cardinal Rewind Show here on STLSportsPage.com. Rob Rains along with Mike Reeves, MLB Network Radio. Usually this is an audio production coming to you after a Cardinal game at Busch Stadium on Sunday afternoons. But Mike, when the Cardinals win 16 games in a row, we've got to do something different.
And I just still sitting here stunned at the number, Rob. The 16s. I mean, it's difficult. John Lester pointed it out very well. I thought he said winning 10 in a row in the major leagues is very hard to do. So this is, it's kind of a mind-numbing, and especially, I guess, because of when you do it. If you do it in April, like the 1982 team did, ran off the long streak, the 12, and it's noteworthy. But you do it down the stretch when you almost had to have a streak like this to get into the playoffs. I think all that puts it in a different realm and perspective. And again, it was a team that was a 500 team basically until they ran off the streak. And like any streak that goes this long, Rob, there was a lot of good fortune involved in it. There were times, but you're also doing a ton of things right, and they pretty much all but they've guaranteed themselves a chance to play in a wild card game. And given where they've been most of this year, that's all they could really ask for.
Sure. And I think, too, it's one of those things when you get to this number of wins. I mean, obviously, the previous Cardinal record, 14 wins, it stood for 86 years since 1935. You're talking about the longest streak in the National League by National League team since the New York Giants in 1951, won 16 games. You're talking about the longest streak in the majors after September 1st since the Cubs won 21 in a row in 1935. You're talking about a team that won its last 11 games on the road in the regular season. I mean, those things just, mathematically can't happen, but it did. And we saw it happen, so we know it's true.
Well, how many times do you hear the term in sports, the once in a lifetime? You hear that in sports a lot, and sometimes it's overused, and you're not really truly looking at something that may only happen once in your lifetime. But these kind of occurrences that just happened, and the streak being what it is, I think you look at the numbers, and as you just said, for most people, this is the one time in their lifetime they've seen anything like this. So yeah, it's and some people will say it came from out of nowhere, but let's be honest, Rob, any 16-game winning streak is going to come from out of nowhere. You're not anticipating it. But I've told you for a while on some of the rewind shows, I thought this was a playoff team, even with the problems they had. I thought they'd end up winning the division. Milwaukee made sure that wasn't going to happen because they didn't come back to the pack at all. But Rob, once they're in, I mean, that one game is always scary, the wild card game. I don't care. Whichever team they play is going to be a 100-win team. But that team could either team can win that game, and whoever does will have a great chance. Whoever wins the wild card game can make a run.
Yeah, well, let's get to that in a minute, but I want to still kind of review everything that's happened to this point here before we spin forward a little bit. I remember on one of our previous rewind shows, it might have been a month ago, it might have been 2 months ago, we were predicting how many wins it would take to get that wild card spot. And I think we both kind of came up with the 86, 87 range. Could the Cardinals get there a couple of months ago? We said, yeah, they could get there, but I don't know that either one of us really thought it was a realistic possibility. You're looking at a team that coming into this streak, coming into September, had won 16 games in a month once this season in May. They were 16 and 12. And you're looking at a team that went 41 games between May 30th and July 18th to win 16 games. So when you do the math, it just doesn't comprehend. But like you said, I mean, now that you're there, all bets are off. So, and I think the other thing that stands out to me about this streak is it's almost been a different guy every night. I mean, you've had guys that have kind of moved to the front. I mean, obviously Paul Goldschmidt, who I think has played himself into an MVP candidate. I don't think he'll win, but I think he's going to be, up there in the voting where he wouldn't have been a month ago. You're talking about Tyler O'Neill having a September that's just historic, 11 home runs, the most by a Cardinal since McGuire in 99 in the month. You're talking about, a guy like Harrison Bader, who was just seemingly caught fire here and during the streak and really carried this team. So you're having a lot of the same guys, but it's not necessarily the same guy every night during the streak. And you're talking about winning games in a variety of ways and, comebacks and, coming back from a 5-0 deficit on Sunday, scoring 2 runs in the 9th inning without getting a ball past the pitcher's mound. I mean, that's how you put these kind of streaks together.
And that's why, like you just described, so much of it is once in a lifetime thing, because all those things coming together for a stretch of over 2 weeks is very unlikely, and they all did. And the thing that I have found interesting too, is I use this term just as a general term, not in a disrespect to these pitchers. A lot of no-name pitchers, guys that nobody expected to be even on the roster maybe and contributing, all of a sudden stepped up and were good and got it done, whether it be in the starting rotation and the bullpen then solidified, and they started to have defined roles that everybody was good in those roles. And again, it's everybody out there too. You can't go through this stretch and go through the roster. And if you go through it and look at every name on the roster, you can point to minimum 2 games that guy impacted during this streak. I mean, there was somewhere, some way that guy had something to do with the streak. And it's been a remarkable run, and it's been an enjoyable. I mean, it makes you want to watch every single inning of every single game. Not that you and I don't tend to do that anyway, but it's with a renewed interest. Yeah. And now it's exciting in September, and that's what baseball is all about.
Well, I've told people it's gone from a team a couple months ago that was really hard to watch to a team that you can't stop watching. Because you never know. As I say, they're down 4-0, you're down 5-0. A couple months ago, you may not necessarily click off the TV, but you knew their chances of coming back to win that game were very small. And now it's just, how are they going to do it is the question.
And I love what you brought up, different ways to do it. Small ball sometimes, like you said, you get a rally where you don't hit the ball out of the infield, or then you get the rallies where you hit the ball out of the stadium. I mean, you had those rallies where everything was based on power, and we haven't mentioned the word defense yet, but there's been times it's been a team of Gold Glove caliber defenders. And I know the entire team's not going to qualify for a Gold Gloves, but the point being that somebody has made a play frequently, and it may not even been one of your Gold Glove guys. I mean, they have Gold Glove caliber players, but the guys who maybe aren't going to be in that discussion still made plays. Dylan Carlson made a couple of remarkable plays during this stretch. He's not going to be in the discussion for a Gold Glove right now, but he made plays that look like that. And then some of your guys who are your legitimate Gold Glove type players, there's been some plays that you just like, how does that happen? And some were random. The double play the other day involving, pretty much the entire roster. Okay, those are random, but there's still plays that you have to go your way when you're winning 16 baseball games in a row. And it still sounds odd to say that. I just said it, and I still sitting there going, I just said 16 baseball games in a row. It's really kind of crazy.
Yeah, especially on a team that's, as I say, not a 100-win team. If you were going to say which Major League team this year has a chance to win 16 games in a row, you're going to guess the Dodgers. You're going to maybe guess Tampa Bay. You're going to guess those teams that are going to be at 100 wins or over, have the best record in the league. But that's not the team that got it done. It's these guys. The other Rob Raines STL Sports page here with Mike Reeves, MLB Network Radio, a special video edition of the Cardinal Rewind Show here on the website. I want to encourage everybody to check out the other stories and things we have on the website, stlsportspage.com. Follow me on Twitter at Rob Raines. And we also have a newsletter that we send out every week or so. And one of the things, if you're not already subscribing to the newsletter, when it comes out later on Monday, you're going to want to subscribe to this one, because we have 2 tickets to give away to the Tuesday night game against the Brewers when the Cardinals could clinch the division title. So just go to stlsportspage.com. You'll see the way to sign up for the newsletter if you haven't already done so. And then we'll announce the details in the newsletter about how to be eligible for the drawing for those 2 tickets for the Tuesday night game. The other guy I wanted to talk to, I think maybe, when you came into the season, you said, what are your expectations for Tyler O'Neill? What are your expectations for Paul Goldschmidt? What are your expectations from Harrison Bader? I mean, you had a certain level of, I don't want to say confidence, but you thought you kind of had an idea about some of those players and what they could or couldn't accomplish. Now, I know they've all been better during the streak than maybe you would have expected over the course of an entire season. But I think the other thing is the guys that you look at who have really kind of come out of nowhere to be factors in this race. And one of them is Edmundo Sosa.
Yeah, I don't think anybody thought that he was going to go and take over the starting shortstop job. I don't think they saw that. I think they looked at him, the Cardinals did, as a very viable, legitimate utility, player. And then all of a sudden he got chances and starts, and he did everything that you have to do to be a good shortstop. He's been good defensively. No doubt he's hit well, and he had clutch hits. And then add to that, Rob, this has to happen for a guy to take a position. He also took advantage of a player. Paul DeYoung wasn't having the kind of production that they need him to have. It wasn't, what he had done in the past. Paul DeYoung has had some great productive numbers at times for this club, but he wasn't having them in the early stages of the season. And then Sosa gets some starts. And don't discount, Rob, don't discount that. I guess they've been calling it the energy that Sosa brings.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we can discount that. I don't know if we can discount the fact that he seemed to be having fun playing the game, even when this team wasn't a lot of fun to watch. And I don't know how much that brings, but it felt like it brought something. And great point from your perspective to note what he has done, because I don't know that you can't say he wasn't a big part of kind of stabilizing what this team has done. He's been remarkable, honestly.
And I think, the fact now, obviously, he got hit by the pitch in the doubleheader on Friday in Chicago's out with the sore wrist, but it looks like the X-rays and the other examinations have not revealed a break. So they keep saying 3 to 5 days. So hopefully, he'll have a couple of days to rest now if they can clinch the spot, or they're pretty much going to clinch that spot. So you got about a week or so before the wild card game would begin. So hopefully in that length of time he'll be able to recover. And maybe this is a chance for Paul DeJong. He's hit a couple of home runs since he got back in the lineup when Sosa got hurt. Maybe he can kind of take advantage of this opportunity as well.
And I think you've got to look at that every team should look at, if I have a chance, do what I can. And it has seemed from the outside, again, we don't get the clubhouse access. We don't get what we've had in years past. It has seemed that a guy like Paul DeJong has accepted this situation. Hey, I didn't play as well. Somebody else did. But when I get my chance, I'm going to do the best I can. Because, Rob, you know as well as I do, players can be distractions whenever they lose their job and then they get a little discontented. And I haven't seen that from any of the guys that have had kind of change in roles. I didn't outwardly see it with Alex Reyes. I mean, he looked frustrated. He looked kind of confused and lost because things went so bad for such, that stretch of time. But since then, they've used him middle of games. He's come in and done, a representable job, sometimes a very good job. And he's had some high leverage situations late. Again, it's not easy to have to give up the job that you thought you had and watch somebody else excel in it. But then I think the guys who have had to deal with that this year have done very well with it. And I'm looking forward just to seeing how they mesh this last week. And then if they get to have a playoff run of any sort, who all is the contributors when we get there.
I think part of it is too, I think that the winning breeds the success, and I think breeds the satisfaction with your role. I mean, I think everybody is comfortable now with the role they have because the team is winning. I don't think there's any frustration level. I think that they say, okay, this is what we've got. We can see the finish line here. We know what's ahead of us. We know that we've got the confidence that we're going to come back and win these games, that I'm going to play a role in that win, no matter whether it's in the 4th inning, whether it's in the 7th inning, whether it's in the 9th inning. And I think they've all bought into that team mentality. And I give the manager a credit for that, because I think he's kept this team together even when they were struggling, and always talked about them being a good group, and always talking about them being a cohesive group. And now you're seeing it on the field.
And I do think all year they've had the roster talent to compete at a level that could get you in the playoffs. Now, the expanded, and I know it's been expanded for a while, but having these wild cards, that's the saving grace in all this. Because if this was the old days where you had to win your division to get in, even this winning streak wouldn't have really mattered. Who would have cared? Because the division's been over for a long time. With that said, though, you don't have to be an elite baseball team for 6 months to make the playoffs these days. You don't. We're seeing that, and it happens frequently. So this team has become a great team in September after being a mediocre at best team for most of the year, but it's going to be enough to get them in. And once you are in, as we discussed earlier, Rob, who knows? They may be out in the wild card game. Certainly possible. I don't care if they take a 23-game winning streak into the wild card game. They may be out, but they're going to have that chance. And I promise you, whoever wins the wild card game can make a very good run in the playoffs. It's baseball. That's what's fun. We're going to have at least the chance.
Well, look back to 2006, look to 2011, and you see a Cardinal team that was not the best team in the league for the majority of the season, yet they got to the World Series and they won it.
And you don't, there's so many factors in a sport. I call them parity sports where any of the teams can be a challenge to others. Baseball is a parity sport. There's a reason that the Baltimore Orioles can win a series against the Tampa Bay Rays. They can win a series against, they're not nearly as talented. So once you get to the playoffs and everybody's at least good, there are no bad teams that make the playoffs. You're at least a good team. Well, who knows what's going to happen? Both the 100-win teams in the National League may fall short of even getting to the World Series. We don't know. But that's why we watch the playoffs in sports like that. Hockey's one, of course, that who knows once you get in. I think that's better than sports like I refer to basketball a lot. You can usually mark 2 or 3 teams at the start of a season in the NBA that could win the title, and one of those will. In baseball, it's not like that. And so that's why this Cardinal team that frustrated the heck out of people for the better part of 4.5 months could, at the end, have everybody elated and attending parades. I mean, it can happen. We'll see.
Couple more minutes with Mike Reeves, MLB Network Radio, here on our special edition of the Cardinal Rewind show, a video edition here on this Monday as the Cardinals have the day off, celebrating the sweep in Chicago after the sweep in Milwaukee, getting ready to host the Brewers on Tuesday night. Adam Wainwright will be on the mound as Cardinals need one win to clinch the wild card playoff spot, or a loss by the Phillies would also do it. But so let's flash forward here a little bit, assuming they're going to get that one win, and they'll be playing on October 6th in either Los Angeles or San Francisco. The one-game wildcard playoff. To me, the best thing that could happen for the Cardinals is to have the Dodgers and Giants tie for the NL West title, because then they would have to play a one-game playoff on Monday to determine who's the division champion and who's going to host the wildcard game. Obviously, they'd have to burn, a pitcher that then would not be eligible to pitch in that wildcard game. And like you said, any one game can match up. And I honestly, I'm not, we saw the Cardinals and the Dodgers here recently. Cardinals split the series two games. Obviously, they lost to Scherzer, but I don't think that the Cardinals are intimidated by the Dodgers, and I know they're not intimidated by the Giants. They won the regular season series against the Giants of this season.
And there's always a couple of things involved there. First of all, when they played the Giants weren't at full strength offensively. Okay, but you still won the games. You get a little level of confidence. The Dodgers, when they came here for the 4-game set, through Scherzer and then none of their real big-time stats. But the bottom line is this. You got wins. You won against those teams. And if you want to add an element to your best case scenario, this is opinion. I believe in that best case scenario, you have the wild card game, and then both teams have to pick who's going to, you have that final game to determine the West. All right, who are we going to throw to try to win the West? The best scenario for the Cardinals is the Giants lose that game, because I don't think they have the depth of pitching that the Dodgers have. And whoever you get as the Giants' second pitcher is probably going to be a little more favorable matchup than whoever the Dodgers would have to use as a second, because, all right, theoretically, the Dodgers use Scherzer to win the division, and they still have Buehler sitting there for the wild card game if they lose. Giants don't quite have that kind of combo going at you. So all those things are fun to talk about, but the best thing to do is just watch it and then see how it plays out.
All right, talking about baseball in October and your team in it is always the most fun time of the year. I think the other thing you could say too, though, is, to me, I think the Cardinals would have a better chance of beating the Dodgers in a one-game wild card game than you do winning a series against the Dodgers, simply because you talked about, because of that pitching depth. I would rather play the Dodgers in a wild card game, take my chances, and then take my chances again against the Giants in the best of 5 series.
And that's a great way to look at it, because the one game is going to be tough no matter who it's against. I don't care who you have to play.
So can happen in those games, yeah.
Yeah, that's why you have to look at what is the bigger picture. And there's no doubt the Dodgers in a series, they can throw some serious arms at you. They can do to you in a series what the Nationals did to this team in the NLCS in 2019. They can do that to you. They can make you hit 130 and score a run a game in a series. Not saying the Giants don't have good pitching. Well, what they've done is stunning to me. I can't believe the year they've had. But if you just want to look at the intimidation factor alone, that starting staff isn't going to feel as intimidating to go up against as maybe if you're looking at, all right, we're going to go Buehler and Scherzer and Urias, and there's the 3, you're going to get your first 3 games. And you're not even talking Clayton Kershaw in that group anymore. That's how good that's been. And he has fallen off from his normal production. But it's an awfully deep rotation, and it's not one that you look forward to in a series. I'll say that.
And the Giants have got some guys like Buster Posey, Brandon Crawford, who have been in their postseason success in the past years ago. But I don't think they have obviously the Dodgers have more recent experience of guys with postseason experience. And so we all know, once you get into October, that what your expectations are of what can happen in October is totally different than what can happen during the regular season. It's better to have guys who've been there and have gone through that before.
I think it's better, but then you never know who those guys will be that have never experienced it, that will just take the reins. And
Randy Arozarena come to mind, from last year.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Did they go into the postseason last year thinking Randy Arozarena would be the star of the postseason? Did anybody think that would happen? No way. I mean, he's a good player, but was he going to become the star of all the stars. And he certainly did that. He wasn't just the best Tampa player. He was the best player in the postseason last year, period. So do the Cardinals have one of those guys? Well, I mean, maybe we'll go deep enough into October to find out.
That'll be fun. I'll tell you what, this has been a fun edition of our program. So thank you to all your help during the season. Mike provides all the audio content on the website after every Cardinal game. We'll be doing it this week as the Cardinals close out the regular season and then move on to the wild card game and hopefully more than that. Again, sign up for our newsletter. Go to stlsportspage.com. Be eligible to enter the contest to win 2 tickets to the game on Tuesday night when the Cardinals could clinch the second wild card division. For Mike Reeves, MLB Network Radio, Rob Raines, STL Sports Page, thanks for tuning in to this special edition of the Cardinal Rewind Show.